So hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm the Legally Blind Bookworm, and today's video is a bit different than what I've been doing. So today's video is my very first author review. So I had debated on doing this for a while, and I just ended up finishing one of the newest books from this particular author, and I decided that it was time to do an author review on this author. So this author is J.D. Robb. J.D. Robb is the pen name for the more famous author of Nora Roberts. So J.D. Robb is her pen name where she writes the In Death series. So all of the books written by J.D. Robb are of the In Death series. The In Death series is currently 48 books long, and that does not include a ton of novellas as it goes on. So kind of as background of this In Death series, how it originally came about is Nora Roberts was asked to write on the subject where the In Death books kind of come from. She was asked to write a trilogy. This was a completely new subject line and just overall idea that had come to her, and she actually was kind of afraid of what I'm told of writing this under her Nora Roberts name. So what ended up happening is she chose to write under a pen name and wrote the trilogy that started off the In Death series. So she ended up writing them under the name J.D. Robb. That way, nobody knew it was her when the books came out. So the first 3 books came out, and that started off the series, and people fell in love with this series. And so what ended up happening is, as later books came out, you ended up seeing on the covers where it says Nora Roberts writing as J.D. Robb. So then you ended up discovering that it was actually Nora Roberts behind J.D. Robb. So what Nora Roberts has done is she has just kept the J.D. Robb name, and the only series that is under it is the In Death series. So the In Death series is a futuristic suspense series that takes place in the year, I think it started off in 2058 with the first book of Naked in Death. So it follows Eve Dallas, who is a homicide lieutenant in the NYPSD. So Eve Dallas just investigates these murders that are all ending up linking together. And so you start to get to know some of the characters of the people who also work in the NYPSD and just her general impressions and everything like that. And she ends up in Naked in Death meeting the handsome billionaire of Rourke. Yes, just one name of Rourke. And he is an Irish billionaire who lives in New York. They end up falling in love, and he ends up just completely changing her life, not just in money, but in love and in attitude, and you really see a complete transformation of Eve as the series goes on. So they end up getting married at the end of the trilogy. But of course, because there's now 48 books in the series, you end up getting to know him and honestly falling in love with Rourke. But characters are constantly going in and out of this series, and you just fall in love with a lot of the characters of these series. So each book is kind of categorized in a different area. So all of the murders are basically all done by one person or a couple people that are grouped together, and she has to end up finding the killer of these people. So there's been a couple different books that I haven't really liked just because of the overall content and the overall subject line of this. But for the most part, I have loved all of them. So if you ever see a book suggested to you that says In Death at the end, know this is probably part of the In Death series. J.D. Robb started the In Death series in 1995 with Naked in Death. And she has written, I believe, at least 2 a year, and most of the time there is also a novella that is part of an anthology that ends up coming out as well that year. So there's a lot of 0.5s on Goodreads. So J.D. Robb, I like to refer to J.D. Robb's books as a realistic, futuristic romance. A lot of the things that they are showing in Death series and that Nora Roberts and J.D. Robb have put into these books is actually going on right now. So some of my favorite things are being able to walk into a room and saying turn on the lights, and turning on TVs via voice, and in fact walking into a shower and telling them what temperature you want. There's also some other fun things in there, like an auto chef, which I haven't quite figured out how it works, but a lot of other things that are in fact happening right now in society, with people trying to ban guns and flying cars, and although I don't think flying cars yet, but cars that drive themselves, things like that. So I think like I said, I like to refer to this as realistic future. So I believe there's only one book in the J.D. Robb's In Death series that is not with the ending of In Death, and this would be New York to Dallas. So this is an In Death book. It just did not get the In Death name because instead of it being put and taking place in New York, it actually takes place in Dallas, Texas, which is actually where Eve Dallas comes from. But if you're really into Nora Roberts books and you are not familiar with the J.D. Robb name, I would definitely suggest you look at this series and look at these books. They are a ton of fun, and learning all about Eve and Rourke and her partner Peabody and her partner McNabb and falling in love with Mira and Mr. Mira, and learning all about Feeney and everybody else just is a ton of fun. So I would definitely suggest this series to anybody who loves romance and may even love that suspense romance. So J.D. Robb and Nora Roberts are one of my favorite authors. I can glue into these books just almost instantly and have really only found a couple books that I really didn't like in the series. But this is a book that anytime I know a new one's coming out, I am searching Bard for it. So link down below, I will link to the series on Goodreads, because there are probably 50 some books that include the novellas. I'm going to put it just as a series so you can then find all of the books in the series. All of the novellas are part of an anthology, so finding those particular books, and I can't remember if on Goodreads it actually has the listing of the anthology name or if you're going to have to search for it, but sometimes those anthologies, you have to actually find the entire anthology to find the book that you're looking for, and some are actually individually put in there. One of the books was in the anthology Remember When, which was actually a Nora Roberts and J.D. Robb link, and I can't remember if that one also has the name of In Death or not, but I will link those down below. I will also link J.D. Robb's group, her Facebook group. I will also link the link to some other pages, including her website and her Goodread links and all of that. For those on Bard, just make sure you go searching for J.D. Robb and you will find the In Death series, and I would definitely suggest reading these in order, because otherwise you might get a little confused with the style and who these characters are. So definitely reading them in order is better, although each one can be a set aside book. There is a number of things as you go through these series that J.D. Robb has already released that you will not end up finding out certain items until the very end of the series. But one thing I love about these J.D. Robb books is unless she wants you to know who the killer is, you will not know who the killer is. You might have some suspicions, and that's okay. But for the most part, you do not know who the killer is. But although some of these murders are a bit gruesome and they can be a little bit, like sensitive content or triggers, I would definitely suggest you read them because not all of the book is all about the killings. There is a ton of romance, there is a ton of character growth, and there's just a ton of information that leads you into the other books that it just encompasses it all. So JD Robb's In Death series always give me 2 thumbs up, and I just love them. So, as always, you will also find some links down below to my blog and my Facebook and my Instagram. And as always, keep on reading.
If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and make sure you ring that bell for notifications.